Hello and welcome. This is NTA Tuesday Live. I'm Cyril Stober. Nigeria's National Assembly is often referred to as the icon of democracy. Now, this is because it is the fulcrum of every democratic institution. Now, the leadership of the red and green chambers have emerged for the 10th time, and the process, which lasted more than 4 hours, was through credible democratic tenets and procedures acceptable by the members. Now, the constitutional mandate of the National Assembly, which revolves around lawmaking, legislation, and oversight, will now be prominent in the coming days with the leadership of the 10th Assembly in place. But the big question is, what should Nigerians expect towards the actualization of the renewed hope mantra of the incumbent government? Now, this is what NTA Tuesday Live will take on as it focuses on the 10th National Assembly building strong democratic institutions. But before we go into the discussion, let's get to see this report by Lami Ali.
It is a normal practice for the legislature to have an agenda the lawmakers hope to execute in the 4-year life cycle. It appears the administration of President Bola Tinubu, inaugurated 2 weeks ago, has set the tone for the 10th Assembly by the removal of the subsidy on petroleum products. What this means is that both the legislature and the executive will work together in the coming weeks to amend the 2023 Appropriation Act, especially as it contains provision for subsidy till the end of June. That aside, the presiding officers of Nigeria's bicameral legislature are aware of the importance of making handy a work plan to impact the lives of the people through effective lawmaking and oversight.
That the enormous responsibilities facing us, that we shall tackle them headlong. We'll look into the existing laws and work closely with the House of Representatives to realign them to ensure that they are fit for purpose and they suit the current realities of the artificial intelligence that the world is facing today.
We will focus on strengthening our security apparatus, collaborating with relevant stakeholders to combat insurgency, terrorism, and all forms of criminalities. We aim to help create a safe and secure environment that fosters economic growth and social stability.
So if there's any national objective, we are going to key into it, but from the perspective of the legislature, ensuring that at all times, better laws are put in place to replace obsolete laws that are no longer solving the dynamic needs of our people. The gap that is created in such obsolete laws will be bridged with the introduction of the innovations that this new energy will bring on board. So it will be a mixture of the new energy and the old model coming together to issue the best for our nations.
Expectedly, Nigerians are looking forward to the legislature to ensure checks and balances.
I do not still believe in politically motivated infrastructure. Therefore, the 10th Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria will ensure very serious oversight functions. We shall carry out very serious oversight functions to make sure that we do not waste the resources of the country.
We will champion legislations that will uplift the lives of our fellow citizens, promote social justice, and drive sustainable development.
We'll expect we will redouble our efforts to continue to provide good leadership, good legislative engineering, good representation, and good oversight on behalf of my constituents.
This 10th Assembly will give women an opportunity to create avenues through legislation that will bring in more women into the House of Representatives and the Senate.
We want to look at the Electoral Act, particularly the areas dealing with special focus on electoral offenses, the CBN Act, looking at the powers of the governor of the central bank, the appointment of the governor, such that we do not have a repeat of a situation we had with the change of the naira notes.
We have a Herculean task to move this country forward. And for us to move this country forward, we need absolute cooperation of the electorate. And we need absolute cooperation of all critical stakeholders so that we can enhance progress in terms of economic development and well-being of the country.
Nigerians have given us their mandate. They are waiting for us to kick the ball rolling.
The two new presiding officers are the choice of the ruling party for the positions they now occupy. From the National Assembly, Lami Ali.
All right. That report sets the tone for tonight's discussion. We'd like to introduce our guests. Welcome to this program. Senator Sadiq Umar, representing Kwara North, is a returning senator, and but he was chairman of the.
Thank you for having me.
Let me welcome to this program Honorable Abdulrazak Namdas, a former chairman of the House of Representatives Committee on Army. Thanks for being here. Osareme Osumbo, a two-term senator and former governor of Edo State. Thanks for being here, Prof.
Thank you, Cyril.
Right. Let me now introduce, joining us as well, is Professor Abubakar Suleiman, National Institute for Legislative and Democratic Studies. Thanks for being with us here tonight.
Thank you very much.
All right. Well, as is usual on this program, at some point in time, we'll get to open the lines and it will be interactive, but we'll refresh your minds, and when we get to that point in time, we'll remind you of the process and procedure. But for now, let's begin to look at the 10th National Assembly. It's been a historic day, and after all the, as they would say, the horse trading and all of that, the 10th Assembly is in place. So the question is, let us look at what that implies for the democratic process. And we'll begin with you, distinguished Senator.
Thank you, Cyril. The implication is that our democratic journey, which I always say is a process, not an event, is on course. From 1999, we are doing what is the process. So we are on. For the 10th Senate, this republic is ongoing, and the legislature is in place and ready to work with the executive so as to move Nigeria forward. So we are ready. The National Assembly is in place, the executive is in place. It's time to work for Nigerians.
All right. Thanks. We'll go into that in greater detail. But let's come to Honorable Abdulrazak Namdas. You were a member of the House of Representatives, and so you've been part of the democratic process here. We have the 10th National Assembly in place. Let's hear your views on it.
Yeah, thank you, Senator. I have served as a member in the 8th and the 9th Assembly for 2 terms. We just finished our own tenure. I must tell you that I am the way the leadership of the National Assembly was actually put in place. First, we can imagine the experience of the 8th National Assembly, where I think the party didn't do the needful to bring leadership in place, and it created a friction. I was the spokesperson at that time. I know the kind of Herculean tasks I have to go through when I come to NTA and other media organizations. I think not to take chances. The present leadership, particularly the president, Aswaj Ahmed Bola Tinubu, and his vice president Shetima, Kashif Shetima, knows that they won't leave this like this. And they decided to at least get themselves highly involved. And by not enforcing leadership, but talking to members and senators to see reason as to why this leadership should go like this. And I think I expect that with the kind of votes that I've seen, particularly in the House of Representatives, 353 votes, that means that it's about 95% that, look, we are here for this person. So that is, we expect that the take-up will be good, and I expect that there will be no trouble even on the way. So I think we should expect something good, and even in the Senate.
All right. Thank you. Let's come to Professor Usumbo and hear your opening comments about the import of the
Well, Cyril, the 10th National Assembly was inaugurated today, and time begins to run. They have a 4-year tenure, and the countdown has started. And within that period, they must be able to deliver on the expectations of Nigerians. Are good, judging by the way and manner that the Senate and the House of Representatives today. It's a sign of good things to come, and I hope and pray that it be sustained. One factor that I can play a role in the seamless manner in which these elections took place is that for the first time we have a president who was a senator. We have a vice president as senator. We have the national chairman of the party that also intervened. The party leadership in the entire process. The national section and some other members of the National Working Committee were senators or legislators. So this bodes well for the future, that people who understand the system, they know how the process in charge. They let the members elect to ensure that the outcome of this election was very good. And it's commendable. And I want to commend all of them, those that have mentioned, the senators and members of the House of Representatives themselves who were in the middle of it all, the President, Vice President, National Chairman of APC, and others who played a critical role. Leaving out the special role also played by members of the minority parties. For instance, in the Senate, you know that APC has senators, not all 59 senators. So definitely you find members of the minority parties cooperated and ensured that the candidate that was recommended by the ruling party emerged as Senate President. This gives me comfort that we are going to experience from members of the National Assembly who will put the national interest over and above personal interest.
Let's come to the academic who's in here, and let's talk about Professor Abubakar Suleiman, who's Director General of the National Institute for Legislative and Democratic Studies. What happened today will definitely be used, to teach how things happen when a lot of work has gone against.
Thank you very much. Just as other distinguished panelists have already pointed out, our democracy is evolving. Was we cannot go back as a country any longer. Victory is gone forever. Yes, I wouldn't have here today if, for instance, the person that emerged today as speaker was not compared to the other respects, other candidates. Politics, behind the scene that Nigeria we did not know. But today is one of the most efficient lawmaker under Night Assembly, going by the areas of Bill, immortal, going by his activism, going by his role. So if Assembly Senator-elect for Nigerian Abbas, and even regardless of any other variables that you look at, they still consider merits, they still consider efficiency. At the parliament, we tend to be working at efficiency on the part of the people that we propel as our leaders. So it's good tidings. It's something we need to really celebrate. So now we have a lot of diversity in both chambers. We have a lot of parties in Senate, about 9 parties in House of Rep. How the extent to which the leadership, Akpabi for instance, and Tajiri Abbas could now use their experience, their capacity, to bring all these diversity together for them to. I'm not in doubt of the capacity of the two, and I want to commend the senator-elect, for that, as for my extension pointed out, regardless of party affiliation, everybody went for Tajiri Abbas. All the 8 parties, almost all of them. The same thing we need to really, be happy about. One thing that Professor mentioned, which we need to be really about. Now we have, for the past 4 years, I used to be on the side of the parliament, defending the parliament, trying to change the narrative, trying to give an impression to Nigerian people that the parliament are not as bad as claim. Now the parliament, they are now in the executive. What he said, and now you have the president who is from the parliament, the VP from the parliament, you have the chief of staff from all of them from the parliament. That parliamentarians, they are better off than even the executive. Now they have the battles of power, to do and undo. I think that's just my word. And the like of Shetima and the former speaker wouldn't disappoint Nigerians. Nigeria expects so much from them, and I believe they will do much.
Okay. Thank you so much. At this point, we joined via Zoom by Alexa Wilcox, Chartered Accountant and Public Affairs Analyst. Thanks for being with us tonight.
Thank you very much. It's a wonderful pleasure to be in the midst of very, very distinguished Nigerians. In fact, senators that we see only on television and admire their courages and when they speak. Thanks for bringing me in their midst. It's a wonderful pleasure, sir. Thank you very much.
All right. So go right ahead and tell us what are your impressions about the 10th National Assembly, the build-up to the inauguration. It was a little bit worrying for many Nigerians who thought there was going to be a showdown. But in the end, it...
the president, President Bala Tinubu, let me congratulate him. This has shown that when he's called the Jagaban, he's not a fluke, he's really Jagaban, because he knows how to cut deals. I mean, in any venture, yes, sometimes it's not in all things that you win. Sometimes you also, in major big battles, the battle tops. As human, I would have been a bit disturbed with all that was coming. With even 109, so which is there should not have been any cacophony of voices. Considering what happened in the assembly, I mean, which the distinguished guests I was talked about, some persons has to hijack the back door and then put the entire country in and for to have a single administration. So in the Senate, Nigerians were not expecting democracy that we had. That is democracy. I have in the parliament. I don't know the horse trading that they have in the parliament. So, but what I know in any democracy is the representation of the party. The party says this is how we should go. That should be in the House of Reps. Yes, that's where I was expecting some ruffle fight because an overall majority in the House of Reps. So I was expecting that the entire carefully and he knows how to attack. Remember, he visited Kopansu and the NNP have a sizable House of Rep members. So by Kopansu alone, I guess he was able to attract some of those members to him. And he has now Ashwaju at this point because even though Rivers State, which is my state, has about 13 of I think 14 states on APC. You don't expect Wemike's House to vote against Ashwaju. So he had a few to just fall in line and see how they can support the president. Because already the president in all good conscience has said it very well. And Nigerians have that his output and his so much. I believe that this man needs to be given a chance, and that is proving some of us right. So, for this man, that we know his capabilities and we know what he does. I am delighted that the national is in place and is in place with the kind of rightful leadership that will support and give to the president, because really the kind of work in the assembly, Saraki assembly, what they call him now, assembly is not the kind of assembly Nigeria needs. And you don't call it, you call it a stamp, call it whatever, but at this point, Nigeria needs an assembly to bring about the programs and practices from this administration so that the more desire and everybody will see it. And it's our country.
All right, thank you very much. And an interesting point that raised there about it was this perception that the Ninth Assembly was, as he put it, a stamp. And some Nigerians had said, what would be the assembly? And quite a number of people were wondering if the assembly will end up being, it's debatable, a rubber stamp, as they say. But one thing that is not in contention is that Nigerians expect a lot from the legislature this time around. And how will the legislature?
To quickly add that we are now in second phase of our democracy since 1999. This is a new phase. How do I mean? Like everyone saw it, the person of the government, especially the key positions, are essentially from the legislature. In fact, he was a senator, chief of staff, a senator. So, the legislature in the executive. I say something that every government that comes in from President Yaradua and Jonathan, there is always an error in their first term where they don't get it right in the National Assembly. And first time is always again, because those in the executive now, they understand that. So they knew that they don't have time to waste. Nigeria has to work so that they need to fix the legislature immediately. Yes, the president is a veteran, the vice president is a veteran, and so there was so much horse trading, there was so much negotiations, especially that you even have multiple parties in the assembly, and that's how it does not appear easy. There has been so much hard work put into this to happen the way it happened. Now, the concept of rubber stamp, yes, people understand it in the perspective of the understanding of what they expect from the legislature, which is to always be in conflict with the executive. That's the idea. But we say the legislature is an independent arm of government, like the judiciary and the executive. But I keep on challenging that assumption that yes, the independence of the legislature responsibility to make laws, to oversight. That's how what makes them independent. The sense of it in a presidential democracy, there is no such thing as absolute independence of government, be it executive, because they are interdependent. The executive has to agree and assent. You might want to veto, but whatever you do, you have to rely on the executive. The executive has to rely on the legislature. So this revolving interdependence, you best give result when you collaborate, you check and balance, and make national development as the focus. So in the United States, we were in a hurry to catch up with what was because of conflict. So in night assembly, anything that the executive asks from the assembly, as long as the interest of the country, we don't waste time, we swiftly approve. To the person who is not involved, his understanding is that that is rubber stamp. No. There are disagreements that we understood a better way of solving those disagreements rather than relying on in the National Assembly. So, from our experience of what the country benefited by cooperating and collaborating, in fact, at policy level, at the beginning, you involve the executive and the executive. So we have this understanding before taking decisions. Gray areas will be sorted out before taking decisions. We hope to do the same thing in the 10th Senate, which is the National Assembly as a whole, to be sure that we cooperate and collaborate with the executive. There's so much work to do. The National Assembly have to support that president. However, the difference unlike, we want stand maybe in the 10th Senate as against in the 9th Senate. Don't forget you have multiple parties. But in the whole, it is this country that the 10th Senate cooperate, collaborate, engage, brainstorm together. We're all in time that we are all focused to what we want to achieve for the country. We have to will see more debates, maybe arguments. But
it's been pointed out at top level executive in the legislature. Is that necessarily an advantage? Could there be something somewhere to hand in glove, and who will be there to stand for the people?
Thank you for this good question. I think to me and to most of us, it is an advantage to have members of the executive being who are former legislators. It's an advantage. In fact, they forgot that even our First Lady happens to be a senator. So you can see at each point we have our people on standby. Let me tell you some of the frustration we used to have, either in the Senate or in the House. Anytime we pass motions, motions are supposed to have some kind of force of law. So we expect that if we take a position on a particular issue, and although it's advisory, but we expect that the executive should always implement some of these motions. But I can tell you, we will be on the floor and reel out more than several motions, thousands of them, and it is not being implemented. We used to get frustrated. Thank God that we have now members of the legislature finding themselves in the executive. It is my belief that the present presiding officers, both Senator Kwabio and Tajuddin, Speaker, will now have a sweet way of lobbying through and making our democratic and distinguished Senator President Bola Tinubu to see reason and can implement it. You can see how we can find it easy. When we tell them the story, they will understand because they've been also part of the frustrations before. Now they can use that. And when people talk about rubber stamp, even today at the State House, I think one of the questions that was posed to the Speaker was that they are afraid that he's going to be, or the House will be a rubber stamp. I don't know what this rubber stamp or the stamp itself means, but, but if rubber stamp means to collaborate with the executive, for example, in the 9th Senate, to have a PIA passed for the good of Nigeria, so be it, and it's a good issue. If it is rubber stamp to collaborate with the 9th House of Representatives or the 9th Assembly to find that budgets are no longer delayed for 6 months or 7 months, because budget of 2020 will be passed in July. And this 9th Senate decided, look, a budget comes in September and it is passed in December, ready for the January to implement. If that is rubber stamp, then so be it. Because we as Nigerians, as legislators, we feel that this budget cycle, I tell you that I was spokesperson in the 8th Assembly. Anytime budget is passed, sometimes I'm afraid not the passing. Each time the president assents to the budget, the appropriation bill, the comments that will follow, and I know that that day I will find myself in either NTA channels, be talking, explaining myself for over hours. But here, we have leaders that say, look, please can we have this budget from January to December cycle? And we achieve that. And if that is rubber stamp, so I want to plead with Nigerians to understand that it is not being confrontational that makes us great. It is our ability to lobby. And essentially, lawmaking is about lobbying. Professor Suleiman, who comes from NILS, he knows we've been working together. Each time, they are the ones that always give us some of this capacity building. And they keep telling you, look, it's not about being confrontational. It's about getting results. So please, now that we have a 4th-time member of the 9th Assembly transiting to be Speaker, we have a 2nd-timer who was a spokesperson in the 9th Assembly transmitting to be Deputy Speaker. And we also have somebody in the Senate who was, the Senate President, sorry, who was a minority leader at one point, now becoming a Senate President. We believe that the relationship with the executive will be good. And if the result is good, please, Nigerians should help see that, let it be good. But I cannot tell you, sometimes the legislators got their independence. Where we feel, or where the legislators feel that, look, this one they want to encourage, I know they can have their guts. And this 10th Senate, the fact that the number of attrition is very high, over 200 and some of us did not come back. But I can tell you, very experienced lawmakers are still there. They few, but they're very experienced, they're still around. So with the likes of Professor Suleiman in the National Institute of Democratic and Legislative Studies, they will be there to guide. We believe that there will be robust relationship and robust discussion on the plenary, and before you hear, results will come. And I pray that these results in the 10th Assembly will come to pass.
Prof, Nigerians look to the legislature this time around with so many, things in mind. Expectations are at an all-time high. I probably do not think of any time where the people want so much from a government, especially the legislature, as now, given the events of the past few years. And some of them domestic, some not entirely domestic, but have impacted issues here at home. Global issues have impacted, the country as well. You think that the crop of members in the National Assembly, senators and members of the House of Reps, given the huge numbers that are first-timers here, you think they'll be able to live up to that expectation?
Well, I want to be optimistic and hope that they will be able to live up to the expectation. Again, this optimism arises from the fact that we have in place at the executive level, the presidency, people we've talked about their legislative experience, that they were former legislators, but they were also former executives. So these were people who were, both the president and the vice president were governors of states. They were legislators, senators. So they know what it involves. They know what the expectations of Nigerians are, even as governors of their respective states. And again, the legislature, what the public should know, really, is that when you talk of checks and balances, it is not for the purpose of fighting one another. It's not a combat. Governance is not a combat. So both the legislators and the executive have to work hand in hand. Because it is one government at the end of the day. Whether the legislature, the executive, the judiciary there are three arms of the same government. So once this is understood, then some of the perceptions about rubber stamp that my colleagues talked about will not be there. And as for the question of addressing the burning concerns of Nigerians, again, based on the experiences of the leading actors, leadership in any organization, in any system is very important. That is why I want to emphasize the caliber, the quality of leadership that we have in place now in the legislature and in the what are the issues? The most critical issues are security. Because without security, you cannot really be talking of employment or whatever. So that is key. And Mr. President has already demonstrated his willingness to work with the key actors in the security sector of governance. Then the issue of unemployment. Again, he has spelled out what he needs to do. The economy itself. Within these past 13, 14 days, he has done a lot to show Nigerians that he is on the right path of tackling the problems of the economy. We have problems about power, the problems about roads, the dilapidated conditions of the roads. These are issues that are of concern to all Nigerians, all the 360 members of the House of Representatives and the 109 senators. So I wouldn't see any of them standing the way of government in addressing these issues. And again, as I said, based on what we saw today, based on the cooperation and the maturity that was displayed in the National Assembly today, I remain hopeful that they will be able to implement all these programs and policies to ensure that Nigerians don't have any cause to regret, and that they will begin to see that government has the ability to address these issues and the quality of their lives will be better for it.
All right, thank you so much. Well, Prof, one of the key areas where your institute becomes relevant is in capacity building and going through the sets that are now going to be Nigeria's lawmakers. Are you confident?
That? I think the worrisome development is on the high turnover rate. That issue has been overflogged. But again, we've had induction for the senator and the House of Rep members. In the course of the induction, we couldn't believe the kind of interaction, engagement we had with them in terms of the experience they display, in terms of knowledge they display. And that gave us a kind of succor. That's what we are worried about in terms of whether some of them were, or most of them were new in the system. It's not something we should be bothered about. But going beyond that, the induction was a workshop, a training session that tend to, open the door for them to understand the rudiment of the legislation, the procedure, the processes, certain basic that they need to know. That is not all. You could be a professor, could be an engineer, could be a carpenter, a secondary school owner. When it comes to legislative business, it's a specialized business. You need to be availed the opportunity. You need to understand. You need to know it. So we have started. I think I use this opportunity, and this is going to be strange even to the senator and the House of Representatives here, that beyond the induction, which took place about 3 weeks ago, the Institute has been given the go-ahead, for instance, by the leadership of the National Assembly, just 3 or 4 days ago, to come up with a refresher certificate course again for all these new members, especially under 10th Assembly. The induction was done within 2 weeks, and 1 week was, for the senator, for some selected senator-elect and members. In other words, out of 4 and something, you have 2 and something each. But this time around, the refresher certificate course is meant to segment. In other words, we are going to have maybe 50 in the class for 1 week. It's going to be a very thorough, learning process, unlike the induction process. So I think, and that again is the second stage of availing them the training, modules. The third stage is to even avail the leadership of the 10th Assembly, the Speaker, the Senate President, and the principal officers. That's the third stage. And the fourth stage is a training meant for chairman and deputy chairman of committees of both House of Rep and that of Senate. So that in a year, between now and December, you have all these scale out or schedule, for Nigerian parliamentarians. That is not to say, because one thing we are trying to forget here is that our focus has been on the center, has been on the Senate and House of Rep. As I'm talking to you, we have done with about 10 states assemblies in the last 2 weeks. Training session for all the 10, state assemblies. By next week, we are going to the South-South, for all the states in the South-South. The point I'm making is that we are prepared for these challenges. We know what we are facing. Asiwaju Ahmed Tinubu is hitting the ground running, and the parliamentarian must keep pace with him. The major lacuna we experienced in the 9th Assembly is not about rubber stamp or no rubber stamp. As Namda has rightly pointed out, call them rubber stamp. As long as we get results, that's what is important to us. If you got result through the Finance Act, through the PIB, through the Electoral Act, through the Social Investment Program Act, through the Student Loan Act, forget about rubber stamp. That is not the issue. 2 or 3 days ago, I was the former Senate President, and was telling me the challenges he faced, how he was able to resist certain things from the executive. So I think the major lacuna on that next assembly was the fact that most of the resolutions were not being respected by the head of MDAs. It's not the fault of parliamentarians that they do it, but whether it was not respected by the chief executive of MDA is another point, and that is where we believe this, having the parliamentarians now in government, in the executive, all the people you mentioned, the chief of staff, the SGF, I think this is the gap they are going to fill. Where a situation where the parliament will summon the chief executive and he will not respect because you are the head of custom or because of the head of NDDC, that era is gone. Asiwaju will not condone it. And with the caliber of people in the executive, especially in the inner caucus of Asofila today, that I want to believe will not be condoned. I think this is the major problem that the Ninth Assembly faced, and Nigeria would want to see that. Their own is to put the blame on them, not knowing that a lot of resolutions have been passed, a lot of debates went in, a lot of positions were taken, and the executive, especially some powerful minister, some powerful chief executive, defied. So, yes, we have a system that tilts power towards the executive, presidential democracy. But that doesn't mean that people that are vested with responsibility of overseeing parastatal should not respect the parliament. To me, in any democracy, as conceived by the founding father of democracy, parliament is the key thing. Without the parliament, forget about democracy. No, it's the epitome of democracy. Mr. President, yes, and the Vice President, and indeed the former Speaker, who is not the Chief of Staff, and SGF, that any attempt to allow, to give more preponderance of power to the chief executive of MDAs as against the parliament is amount to eroding the power of, the parliament. And that must not be taken this time around. That was the major problem the Ninth Assembly had in terms of whether they have done what they have. For instance, you talk about 1,120-something bills, 500 being passed, 131 assented to. That was the first of its kind since Nigeria was created. And these are landmark legislation. So if anybody condemned them, I'm talking fact now. I'm rolling out figures now. And it's something verifiable by students of history, by students of political science. So you cannot just deny them that history. So I think what we need to do now, having these calibers of people in the executive, is for them to respect the sanctity of the parliament. And I want to believe at our level as the institute, we are going to give them all the necessary tools to work with in terms of capacity building. As I highlighted most of these schedules training for the leadership, for the head of committees, and even for the new intake that are just coming in this time around. So I think we are prepared for it.
All right, let's go back to our guest on Zoom, Alexa Wilcox. And yes, the system we practice tends to tilt more power to the executive. And you have, as has been noted, a high turnover, new members who are coming into the legislature. How do you think they would navigate and become well-grounded, because there's a lot of work that needs to be done. There's a lot that needs to be done. Expectations are very, very high.
Sincerely, Cyril, I'm very sympathetic to the legislature in this country. Unfortunately, nobody, even them, they don't speak for themselves enough as to give Nigerians the true fact of the work they do. I empathize with them because expectations of the legislature is quite different in Nigeria to the real work of the legislature. Let me say this, Cyril. There is nothing like rubber stamp. I don't believe in the principle that any legislative has the rubber stamp, especially at the center. Yes, in the state legislatures are a different kettle of fish. But at the center, look, we all see democracies work in every part of the world. Look, there is nowhere in the world where a party will oppose the government. We have, look at the U.S. National Assemblies. Look at the Senate. Just by getting one majority, today the U.S. Senate is 50-50. Is it 51-49 or 50-50? But because the vice president holds the ace, the Democratic Party, feels that they're in control. Okay, is it at that point that you now expect the Democratic Party to now start opposing Biden's agenda? Then you are calling for anarchy for that government to fail. Will the British Parliament, will the Conservative Party parliamentarians go against the policies of the Prime Minister? That is a call to failure. So Nigerians must understand that in the National Assembly, a ruling party will always, must always support the programs of that government, because that is your government. Despite the fact that we understand that in this country today, party supremacy is a problem because there's the jumpology syndrome, that today you are in APC, tomorrow you move to PDP, next day you move to Labour Party. That is just outside the norm. But the fact remains that that is what we need to address, that aspect. But the fact remains that if you're elected under a party, that party's supremacy and discipline, we also saw it play out in the Second Republic. I was still very young in the Second Republic, but we know for fact that the MPN and the UPN, an MPN will never go against the policy of the MPN, and the UPN is the opposition party. Okay, the MPP is still there, and then the GNPP and all whatnot. But you will discover that the MPN will never go against the policy of Shehu Shagari. If there is anything to be amended, it's at the back end. If there is any situation that needs to be corrected, it's at the back end, not on the floor of Parliament, that you expect the ruling party legislators that should be out to ensure that their party manifesto, their party policy is seen through. So Nigerians must understand that, and unfortunately, the spokespersons of the two arms of National Assembly are not addressing these issues. They don't emphasize to Nigerians, and we public affairs analysts, we also tend to play to the gallery, to the emotions of the people, making them more ignorant of the real fact of a legislature. Sometimes we expect the legislature to start building roads. We expect them to start digging boreholes, although they have soiled their hands with this constituency project issue that is not supposed to be. How that came into force, I don't understand. That which is not supposed to be. So today, everybody, every constituent expects the senator to come home and buy bags of rice for them and pay their children's school fees, or build a road, or buy born water for them. Yes, if a senator wants to do that from his own pocket or from his as a benevolent, that is fair and good. But not that today the norm is that we expect the legislator to come and be doing the work of the executive. The legislator is to make laws. That is their primary responsibility, and do oversight. Now, the problem that we are having is not even the laws, but the oversight. And I'm happy that the director of the institute has expressed that, sir, if you want resource persons, I am available. I can do it for free, because I can do that for free. I love this country so much. So if you need resource persons in any area in which you are in your work, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I can do it for free. I won't charge you a dime. I can bring my knowledge to bear. I'm a highly qualified chartered accountant of repute. So I can work without charge. For this country in this area, because look, we need to get this at the legislative end, because that seems to be the missing link. And like Prof said, is it Prof that said it? Look, if there is no legislature, then there is no difference between the military and the other forms of government, because the legislature is the difference. And in Nigeria today, the legislature gets the bad name for what they are not. And I empathize with them. Look, something as even simple as budget. By the time the National Assembly budget is mentioned, even I had to fight some of my colleagues. You just take the figure 130 billion and divide it by 459. Say this is what one legislator earns in Nigeria, and they start making caricature and mockery of it. And sometimes some of us who knows the truth, we start explaining to them The budget is a National Assembly budget. National Assembly is not only legislatures. You even have the National Assembly Institute. You have the building to maintain. You have the bureaucracy to maintain. So that budget covers everybody. But the legislators say they are not even educating Nigerians on these facts. And so most times they are poorly judged and they don't speak out because they too are trying to play to the ostrich, or they don't even understand what they are out there to do. They don't understand. So they begin to buy rice, to buy gari, pay school fees for their constituents, and begin to see themselves as semi-government within their constituency. So for those that are coming new, it's sad for me that the turnover is high, very, very high, and unprecedentedly very high. I mean, there are some people that have spent 30 years, 40 years in the American Congress. Some people have spent 30, 40 years in the British Parliament, and they have come to maturity. Even those who are coming new will have done some work in their communities, in their local councils, that people have seen and say, yes, these persons have capacity. But this is not so in Nigeria. In Nigeria, it's either the governor just wants to pick somebody as a godson to present, just send him to the Senate or send him to the House of Rep, or somebody just like the new wave that came up, the new wave party that came up, and all kinds of people that just pick up forms as House of Rep members, and they just win because of the new wave that happened. So most often than not, people are not well prepared, especially at the House of Rep. No wonder Obasanjo called them, schoolboy rascal or something. I can't remember the terminology Obasanjo used on the House of Rep. The Senate, even though they call the Senate a retirement home for governors, look, we need to improve on these things. And I'm happy that the director of the institute is there. These things need to improve, and the legislator need to communicate better. Their spokesperson needs to do their job and communicate better to the public to understand what legislature is all about, and how the legislature is supposed to help to bring about, because there's not the legislature if you don't pass a bill. If you don't pass a budget, you can't spend. And after passing the budget, you don't do an oversight to ensure that MDAs comply with the terms of the budget, to ensure that things are smoothly done based on the laws you pass. Then you have no measures, then you have no work. And that's why they say the work rate of National Assembly is so low, very, very low. Because most of them are not, they sit for 3 times a week, and then you don't even know the committees, you don't even see their work, you don't even know what they do, except they come to plenary. And the plenary, not many of them speaks at the talk at the plenary. So Nigerians must understand, and they must up their game, and they just must understand what their rules are. Sorry, I'm speaking in a talk that is not mine.
It's okay.
As an analyst.
Yeah.
As an analyst.
A number of the issues you have raised, we will still examine them in greater detail. But so far, apart from the discussions in the studio, we also have a number of reports. And we'll start with this one from Lagos.
The curtain has finally been drawn on the ninth National Assembly and the new tent inaugurated to steer the nation's legislative ship for the next 4 years. The legislature, which represents the people, is an integral part of good governance. Nigeria has enjoyed an uninterrupted democratic journey. Despite the upheavals that affected some of the assemblies in time past, it has remained unshaken and more resolute to ensure a greater and virile nation, as well as to deliver its mandate. Every new government has a lot on its plate left behind by predecessors, and with the inauguration of a 10th National Assembly, Nigerians are calling on this body saddled with constitutional functions to deliver a sustainable dispensation of good governance under a creative, loyal, and people-oriented administration.
The responsibility is number one, to make sure that the government has the kinds of rules, policies, laws, and regulations that will make for a saner society, a society that's open for business, a society that will bring about economic development, and a society that will bring about equity and fairness.
How can the 10th National Assembly live above board in the discharge of its duties?
Living above board by the National Assembly will be a deep call onto the innermost being of them, as far as patriotism for their nation is concerned. The other part is that citizens must continue to hold them to account.
Others suggest areas they should tackle headlong.
Security is very important. They should tackle that headlong, and they must be able to put in place laws that will make it very difficult for anybody to engage in terrorism, to engage in kidnapping, to engage in all these social vices.
To work hand in hand with the president or with the executive to ensure that which is promised Nigerians are delivered in record time. And this is not to say that there should be a rubber stamp assembly, but no, they are to fulfill their responsibility to carry out their oversight functions when due.
The hope reassured mantra is what Nigerians are banking on for a prosperous nation. Adeola Komiakiri.
All right, next we have this other report from Port Harcourt.
Nigeria, the legislature remains one of the organs of government charged with the mandate of ensuring that good governance is sustainably delivered to the people. This explains why attention is on the quality of leadership as well as policy direction of the 10th Assembly. To achieve a legislature that is alive to its obligations to the people, Nigerians seek separation of powers to enable the legislature perform optimally.
The true representatives of the people are the senators, members of the House of Reps. Some of the senators, they dance to the tune of the executive, but you can't write that off. Okay, I always say this, that anytime we talk about separation of power, we cannot have a watertight, separation of power.
If the president, for instance, there are projections from the executive arm of the government that the president should appoint indirectly or select who becomes the head of the assembly. If we allow that to happen, or if the members of the assembly, the national members of the assembly should allow that to happen, it could be detrimental to the entire nation, because what we'll also have is the replication of what we had in the 9th Assembly. But Nigerians are not expecting that. Nigerians expect a robust assembly, an assembly that is sensitive, an assembly that is of concern to the pains of Nigerians. And how do we get that right? It is by getting a strong leadership of the houses, which is the House of Representatives and the Senate, as it were.
There is also the need to identify relevant reports of past legislative interventions that have direct bearings on the economy for outright implementations. Some of them, they say, border on the power sector, education, NDDC, National Social Investment Program, insecurity, and institutional reforms.
I'm in Port Harcourt. There's no train from here to, if I'm going to Warri. Good one. Areas like the judiciary, speedy judgments should see what they can do to make Nigeria better. 10th National Assembly should start work immediately.
People are expecting the 10th Assembly to be patriotic in their dealings. We should not have members of the Assembly that will come into existence, into the power, with the desire of first satisfying themselves before satisfying the interests of the nation.
In the country's quest for a vibrant economy, it has become imperative that there has to be in place a dynamic framework highlighting the established goals and plans for achieving unity of purpose and commitment to a shared vision among the lawmakers. In Port Harcourt.
All right, our report from Port Harcourt. At this point, we'll take a short break. When we return, the phone lines will be open. It means you can get to join the discussion in the studio. So stay with us on NTA Tuesday Live. We'll be back shortly.
The Council of Our Fathers.
I will urge and advise our younger generation to use talent and brain to sort out problems, not arms.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation.
My advice to these young people is please do not take us back to those harrowing days. You probably do not know what it is.
I believe we have fought one civil war too many in this country. So those who experience it will run away from it.
Nigerian youths, Let's build our nation together.
NTA Tuesday Live, a network issue-oriented innovation talk show.
Right, thanks for staying with us. And this segment, as we earlier said, the phone lines will be open. It means you can get to join the discussion in the studio. And we say this every Tuesday when we open the phone lines. If you're calling in tonight and your call gets through, do us a favor, turn down the volume of your TV set. That's the way to avoid the hurlback or the echo. And we also encourage you to keep your questions and comments straight to the point. We advise you not to bother so much about greetings. Just a simple hello would do. And we want you to keep it short, simple, so that others can also get on the platform and air their views. It's all about the 10th National Assembly building strong democratic institutions. So, at this point in time, let's come back to Senator Sadiq Umar. A few things have been listed in this discussion that would be of key importance to the populace, not the least security and, of course, the economy. Now, Nigerians expect, and understandably so, something drastic and immediate steps to be taken by the current government in concert with the legislature to address the insecurity in the land.
Yeah, thank you very much. So again, we will be ready in the 10th Assembly to rubber stamp that. If the executive bring in policies that will turn around the economy, turn around the security, we are going to almost like close our eyes to make sure we approve it for them immediately. So aside the executive bringing the initiative, as I know that in the National Assembly, members still bring in initiatives by ways of bills and motions to ensure that, you know, we support all those key areas that are of concern to the citizens. So yes, that's the key. That's the challenge from Mr. President and his team. And Mr. President understands that, security and economy. But the real big deal from all the discussions that have happened is that there is still a limited understanding of legislation, of development, and of practical reality for the legislature in Nigeria. And you hear most people talk about it, they don't get it. Look, Cyril, as a legislature, the day you have voted, your first concern is what concerns every Homo sapien, or indeed any animal in the world, survivor. How does the legislature survive? How do you hear they say people are in the legislature for 30, 40 years. What's the marking scheme? How are they judged by their constituents that they return them? How is a Nigerian legislature judged to be returned? Is it by passing brilliant bills? Is it by passing brilliant motions? No, it's not.
All right. But isn't that a reflection of the kind of system we run here? One that is tilted more towards what is referred to as turn by turn.
No, it's not. It's the reality. It's still a challenge of underdevelopment. Whatever you say, if I represent a local government or my constituency, the people don't have water to drink, they don't have ordinary solar light to see and secure the environment, they don't have road, they don't have schools with roof, their hospital, they don't have basic drugs. They are concerned, they want that solved, they don't care. Okay. They are not going to see the president. You are the one they are going to see, and they want you to solve it. If you don't solve it, they don't understand what you are talking about. They will kick you out.
All right. We already have a caller on the line, Joseph, calling in from Maiduguri. Hello, Joseph. Go ahead. Joseph from Maiduguri, hello.
Hello?
Hello, go ahead.
Good evening. I'm Joseph Emmanuel calling from Abuja.
Sorry, go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
If this is Joseph we have on the line, just go ahead. All right. Okay. Yes,
Yes.
Honorable.
You see, the truth is that, sir, in Nigeria, just like the Senator did say, your chances of coming back to the National Assembly is not the number of bills and the number of motions you churn out. Agreed. We have three major functions. We have to pass to make laws. We have to do oversight functions. These are critical functions of lawmaking. We have representation. But in Nigeria, it's the representation that is key. As long as you are sent to the National Assembly, agreed you will do the basic lawmaking, do your oversight function. But if you don't go back home and listen to the hue and cry of your people, and you have not been able to fix one small culvert, water, school, even the power, if you don't do this, they will tell you that, look, we don't know who we have elected. Remember his predecessor. This is what he did for us. And sometimes, even the boys in the social media, when they see somebody in Maiduguri or in Plateau or in Sokoto with a project, they will just copy and paste. Say, okay, we don't have legislator here. In this one, we don't have anybody. And again, if you have one of your colleagues who was able to source employment for his constituents, and you know we politicians, he displays this on Facebook that he's able to source about 5, 6, 7, or 10 employment for his constituent, and you are here speaking grammar on television. You are here bringing motions. They wait for you. The day you come with the book of motions, and you will see right from the gate, if you are lucky, somebody have to remove you from the car and they run away with you. If you are not lucky, you will cut off with the problem. So I think the situation in developed nations are not the same with the issue in developing nations.
Okay, let's go back to the phones. We have Abraham from Ebonyi. Hello, Abraham.
Good evening. I'm Abraham calling from Ebonyi State.
Okay, go ahead. Thank you.
I want to say that I'm happy in what transpired at the National Assembly today and in various states where the states House of Assembly members were also elected into principal offices. And at the same time, I want to remind Nigerians that whatever that transpired today was as a result of what we voted during the general election. Now, in some cases, some people are saying these are rubber-stamp senators, this and that, and that, and that, and that, and that. They are the products of the vote we casted during the general election. So my advice to Nigerians is that if we want people that will truly perform, and if we want them not to be rubber-stamped, it should start from the general election. It start from our various constituencies where we elect them to go and represent us. Not when they give us a token and we elect them. When they get there, we start calling them rubber stamp. That is my contribution. Thank you so much.
Right. Thank you very much, Abraham from Ebonyi. Thank you. Well, Prof, need it be so? It's tilting to the fact that perhaps the populace do not really understand the role of the legislature here, and because people tend to think that you elected and you should be constructing culverts, building roads, and doing such things.
Well, I agree with you entirely, Cyril, that there is a lack of understanding of the role of the legislature in Nigeria. And perhaps for historical reasons, the immediate past military regime is something that people would like to compare the democratic system with. Of course, you know that powers resided in the, was it Supreme Military Council or the military people, both legislative power and executive power. So many Nigerians are not accustomed to seeing the legislature as a separate arm of government. And I think even at the early stages, about 1999, people just felt, and they expressed this on the pages of newspaper, that the National Assembly should be scrapped, that they were just a clog in the wheel of progress of government. By government, they meant the executive. But that understanding is changing. That is one. The second point I wish to make is that the question of constituency projects and construction of boreholes and classrooms and roads also has a contextual explanation. When we first got to the Senate in 1999, the budget for 1999 was drawn up by civil servants. They had no input from legislators. The same thing with the budget for 2000. Until that was during the presidency of Senator Evans Warren and Senator Chuba Okadigbo. Senators had no input at all in the formulation of the budget. The budgets were formulated by civil servants, many of whom don't even report to their constituencies. They don't go home. They are in Abuja here. And we got to a situation where we saw that the promises we made in the course of the campaign, we are not able to fulfill because we had no say in the formulation of the budget. It was during Senator Anyim's presidency that for the first time he had this understanding with President Obasanjo, and that was the beginning of members of the National Assembly being able to put projects in the budget. Although it has become wider and bigger as the years have gone by, it was at a very rudimentary level at that time. And the need to do this, as has been explained, is for you to be able to show your constituents that what you promised them during the campaign, on the basis of which they voted for you, has been delivered to them. Otherwise, if you go back to them, they will remind you that 4 years ago you promised us you were going to do this, but you failed. Therefore, we are not sending you again. Let's send somebody who can deliver on his promises. That is the foundation of this, and it is good that the system within Nigeria is working. In the US, they have a different way of going about constituency projects, but it's different here.
All right.
If I have time later, I will speak about the oversight, performance of the oversight.
Definitely we'll come to that. We have another caller on the line, Gab, calling from Akwa Ibom. Hello.
Yeah, good evening.
Yes, good evening.
Hello.
Go ahead, we can hear you.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, evening.
Good evening.
Yeah, actually, hello, are you with me?
Yes, we are.
Hello. Yeah, my own contribution is this program. This program actually is good for a common man in this country. So I'm very, very happy to listen to this particular program this night. My own contribution is concerning the head of the agencies in this country. So if our parliament, be the Senate or House of Reps, if there is any man that is the head of any agencies in Nigeria, then maybe there is an issue come with the particular that very agency. They now invite that person, whether be a House of Reps inviting or a Senate inviting, and that particular person refuses to honor the invitation of these two agencies. What will be the consequence of that particular person at the moment? And the judiciary, they need to be fastened up. If they invite such kind of person, he refuses to honor the invitation, there is no way of saying second chance, or they should invite him again. let the action be taken immediately so that we, the common people in this country, will know that there are people there representing us. Thank you for having me.
All right, thank you very much. Interesting comment, but well, it's tying in with what Professor Abubakar Suleiman said earlier on, that one of the biggest issues with the Ninth Assembly was the failure of MDAs to either honor invitations or from the legislature, but. Again, if we recall, it was more or less a tradition. It wasn't peculiar to the Ninth Assembly. Now the last caller says something should be done. There should be no second chance. But what can be done? Can the legislature, what beyond the legislature issuing threats of arrest? What else?
I think it's a recurring decimal. It's not peculiar to Ninth Assembly, but that of Ninth Assembly drew our attention because of two variables. One, the kind of relationship they had with the executive. And secondly, because of the accomplishments, the scorecard, which, it could not be compared to any other assemblies, since 1999. And I begin to wonder if they have done this so much, and the executive knew they have done so much. The people in the university, the teaching institutions, the academics, they at least know they have done so much. And perhaps even the press, too, have really captured, to some extent, what they have done. And the only problem they had issues was the failure, with due respect, of the chief executive, of the executive, to ensure compliance, by the appointees of executive on the orders of is a major issue. And Nigeria, they are not talking about, and that's why that drew our attention, that yes, they've done this, and this. Nigeria wouldn't know what perhaps the Finance Act is all about. They wouldn't know that this feeding school children or this 500 naira they are giving doesn't have any legal framework until they came up with it about 2-3 weeks ago. They wouldn't know that managing the crime, the fund from the FCC, how to manage it, they wouldn't know all this. So this alarm mark, even the PIA, they wouldn't know. Even the Electoral Act, they wouldn't know. You understand what I'm saying? So if they wouldn't know all this, and they have done all this, it's one thing to have law in place. It's another for that law to be implemented.
Okay.
This is a major issue. Now, they have done so much in the Ninth Assembly, but now a lot of the landmark legislation came in 2022, some 2-3 weeks ago, 2023. What now remains is implementations.
Okay.
And the implementation rests with the executive. If the executive failed to implement, Nigeria wouldn't feel the pinch of good governance. The parliament, they have done their own. Parliamentarians have done their own. It's not level of the executive. And that's the beauty of having most of the core cabinet members of the presidency from the legislature.
All right. We have John Bull from Delta State on the line. Hello, John Bull. Go ahead. John Bull from Delta.
Hello.
Hello, good evening.
Hello.
Hello, John Bull, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah. Like what I want to say, it's all about what my fellow one has just said just now. I love what he said, and I buy the idea. So I want us, especially like our people, what one of them said just now, said that it's good for many of us.
Hello, Jambul. All right. I think that we lost that call. So, Jambul, if you could try again later on, we'll see if we can get you for much longer, so you can land, as we say, with your suggestions. And let's go over to Alexa Wilcox now. You heard the contributions about one of the biggest challenges. But just before you come in, let's see if we can get Olabode, who is calling in from Lagos. Olabode, are you there? Hello, Olabode. Well, all right. At the point where he comes in, we'll go back to the phones. But yes, let's hear you, Alexa Wilcox.
Sincerely, my other participants, they are all right in their assessment of the entire situation. For me, I would say he who goes to equity must go with clean hands. Most often than not, the legislators get their hands soiled by some of the things that we hear they do when they go to MDAs for oversight. All the things we hear, I've not seen them on training courses and so many other things. We saw the show of shame. Is it in the which of the assemblies now between Aruma Ote and Honorable Ihembe as to clear case accusation, and this has happened severally. We know of the probe during the NDDC probe, the off the mic episode, and all whatnot. So when you go to a place and you start seeking favor, and you start doing things that are not supposed to do, they will not respect you. You will lose your corruption is a major instrument that diminishes a human being. And as a legislator, you are there on trust, public trust. So by the time your intention of going for oversight is to go and enrich yourself, which many of them do, and we must admit that, many of them do, and we've seen cases of brown envelope, cases of cartons being used to entertain and to give to legislators that comes to oversight functions. So these things cannot give you the independence and the authority you need. So is it a man that you have gone to and collect first class ticket and you didn't go for the conference that you say you are going for? Is it a person that you now someone and he will respect you? He will not respect you.
Okay.
So some of the things that is making legislators not to get respect is because sometimes they have soiled their hands. And so when you pass your motion, it will just be seen as nothing. We'll settle them. They have a price. We'll buy them. Most times these motions are made just because you want to be settled. And so you come behind. So Nigeria is in a dire state of repair. And that repair will start by the legislatures because they are the bedrock now. Like we said, the difference between the ordinary forms of government and democratic forms of government is legislature. So until they purge themselves and come clean and make sure that they are clean in the eyes of Nigerians, whatever bills they pass or whatever oversight that is not happening, it will still not happen because it will still boil down to corruption.
Right. Let's get back to the phones. Wilson is calling in from Abuja. Hello, Wilson. Hello, Wilson.
Good evening.
Good evening. Go ahead.
All right. Okay. Thank you. First of all, I want to say that I'm not going to buy the idea of the 9th Senate was a rubber stamp of a thing, but I think the senators and also the spokesperson of both chambers should really do a very serious job in trying to educate we, the normal Nigerians, more about bills that are being passed, about problems that are being solved in the National Assembly, so that we have some level of understanding with that are outside and them that are inside. It will really help us in terms of understanding and not criticizing them. That is the angle I'm going to start from. I'm talking about constituency projects by senators or House of Reps members. These things are being done, is something that they should do. Okay, I think the prof said something about some governors and some senators not doing something for their people, and they kick them out. If you don't do these things, senators won't stay for 30 years or 40 years, like they said in the U.S. So this is a project that the executive arms of all states can't work alone. They need people like the senators and the House of Reps to contribute in their own constituency for development to happen, both at the national level, the state level, or the local government level. So it's a system that has to work hand in hand. And thirdly, the last Senate that just passed, we're seeing how people were invited to the Senate for questionings, and these people didn't turn up. It's just a big mockery to me on the face of our democracy, whereby the National Assembly, as an independent body, invites somebody to the Senate to come explain some amount of figures to Nigerians, not just the senators, to Nigerians, and they do not adhere to the calls of the National Assembly. So if there's a way the 10th Assembly can really work their way with the executive more and tell them that if you do not come to the National Assembly to give a clear statement of why we are calling you in here, then there should be more punishment for those people. Example, if you saw what happened in the 8th Assembly, the NDDC saga and the rest of the things, everything just died off like that. Nothing from now. Currently, the suspended CBN governor had the same issue. He didn't appear to the Senate. So these are problems that we Nigerians and also the spokespersons of both chambers should be able to, analyze these things for we that are outside, so that we understand that we are being carried along. Not after 4 years, they come back to the constituency and ask for votes. Advocates, we won't give them the second chance. So the more they bring us together, the better for Nigeria. Thank you very much.
Right, thank you very much. Wilson calling in from Abuja. Well, it's moved into the functions and oversight. Nigerians will expect more robust and diligent oversight. And you find where people have drawn attention to statements that are made when lawmakers are out of the chambers now. And Nigerians have questioned that, well, you had your time and you carried out oversight functions in these areas. How come you didn't get to see all those things? Or perhaps you saw them and kept mum until after being out, then you begin to draw attention. So Nigerians are asking for more robust, more diligent oversight functions. Prof, you were going to start talking about that a short while ago.
Yes, Mr. Wilcox just touched on some of the points that I wanted to make, that when legislators are compromised, or put themselves in position of compromise, they lack the moral authority to diligently perform their oversight function. And he cited examples, and Nigerians can recall examples. Particularly in recent weeks, there have been mind-boggling revelations of certain malfeasance happening in government MDAs. And you begin to wonder, how could these things have happened when we have committees, relevant committees in the National Assembly to perform oversight function on these agencies? What were they doing? So it goes to suggest that they were not really doing their work properly. And as one of my colleagues mentioned before, that there's a problem of implementation. Laws are made in Nigeria. The Constitution is there, has clearly spelled out the powers of various arms of government, the National Assembly, but there is the implementation is questionable of those provisions. And why do some of these heads of MDAs act with so much impunity? It may be, as was said, that the legislators have lost the moral authority to call them to question. And it could also be that they, either by express encouragement or as they used to say, body language of the executive arm based on relationships feel that they are sacred cows. So when a member, a head of an MDA, or feels he is untouchable, then he begins to act with so much impunity that they do whatever appeals to them with no fear of any consequences at all. That leaves the Nigerian populace with a sense of helplessness, with a sense that the system is not working. But again, my hope, we are talking about what happened in the past. Now talking about the 10th National Assembly and their relationship with the executive, there are reasons to believe that the executive understand exactly how these things play out. And they will not directly or indirectly encourage a system whereby a head of an MDA would be summoned, for instance, and he would fail to simply ignore the summons of the National Assembly or fail to appear, that they would come hard, very hard, on such a member of the executives. Those are the kind of signals that Nigerians expect to see. And once they make an example of one or two people, you'll find that the system will start running properly. Nigerians expect to see examples being made of these people, the kind of things that they have been able to get away with in the past, that there is a new system, a new government in place that does not tolerate those kind of things. Because we can't continue to repeat this. Otherwise, Nigeria will not make any progress. There must be a remarkable departure from the past where the National Assembly felt helpless in exercising its powers. And on the part of the National Assembly too, I know they have code of conduct, code of ethics, code of conduct. I'm not aware how rigorously this is enforced by the members themselves. I want to see the 10th National Assembly being able to enforce the code of conduct on the members. Once you do that, then we begin to infuse some sanity into the behavior of some of those types of members of the National Assembly.
All right, Senator.
Yeah, thank you very much, Prof. I'm passionate about this concept. Really. Look, in my experience in the last 4 years, I've looked at our responsibility, and I've said, look, lawmaking is not a big deal. There are enough persons who are ready to make laws. The executive can bring law, private individual can bring private bills. That's not a problem for a National Assembly. Representation, this is given. You have to represent your people, talk about their problem for everybody to hear. Yes, you must solve even their private problem. It's in our culture. If you are better than people around you, you have to solve their problem. If you have access to going to get something to solve their problem, you have to do. The real deal for us in the 10th Senate and in this country is in oversight functions. And the solution is very simple. The executive, specifically Mr. President, have to take this very serious and tell the MDAs oversight will be done, and whoever does not comply, you will be fired or there will be dire consequences. So that's on the executive side. On the legislature side, we need to also get more discipline, and we need to get more committed to our oversight function. In fact, we should increase time for oversight than anything, because that's where we are needed in this country. The rot that goes on in the country is because there is no proper oversight over MDAs.
Okay. Well,
yes, really I want to say something that it may not be popular with the people, but I beg that people should listen very carefully. The major issue has to do with funding. Funding. You see, as I keep saying, anytime you talk about funding, most Nigerians don't want to listen because they believe you take high salaries, you have so much money, you are not even doing the job, things like this. But I think the problem is people don't actually know much of the workings of the legislature. And I give an example. If you are to go on oversight, it is expected that you make your own tickets, just like Wilcox just mentioned. You provide your own tickets, provide your own vehicles, provide for your own hotels, provide for your own feeding, and this must be done from the National Assembly. Once you are provided with all this, you will ask the relevant questions. But if you are to go on oversight, and then you are told that somebody, the agency has done tickets for you, You are compromised from day one. And the point is that until we are well funded, since I came to the National Assembly, we used to have 150 million, which is just 2% of the national budget. But because of the hue and cry of Nigeria, it came down to 120 billion. And I can tell you, as I said, this 120 billion includes even Professor Suleiman, the NIS will get from that amount. It includes the staff, will get from that amount. We have NABRO, we have the library, we have Sergeant at Arms. It's not about only the members of the National Assembly. And sir, the more important thing again is that if we have public hearings, you would need not less than 5 million naira to handle a public hearing. And let me explain, because any people inside they tell you that spokesperson, so we're talking, it's not just about spokesperson, it's mindset. I tell you, if you are to do a public hearing, you are expected to put in 2 or 3 national dailies for Nigerians to know that there's a public hearing. And go to any national daily, you will not have less than 700,000 for a color page. That is one. And you are supposed to put in 3 national dailies and electronic media. That means already 4 million naira is out. You are supposed to also, in this public hearing, invite experts, consultants, academicians, civil society organizations, some of which live in Lagos. You are supposed to provide transport money for them to come to this particular, and they provide even food for them. And then all these things, you require money. And then the legislature is something that has to do with resources. So I bet, because of timing, I can see that we need to fund the National Assembly very well. Of course, the relevant agencies should know. People should be able to ask what you have done with the money. But the mere fact that you do not provide, then that's a problem.
Well, perhaps, Professor Suleiman, you have an edge here, having been on the executive side yourself, having been Minister of National Planning, and these are issues that have been thrown up over and over again as we march towards entrenching this democracy we so cherish. So, on the side of the executive, do you think that much has been done by way of taking into cognizance what kind of funding the legislature deserves?
You see, when my brother, Senator Sadiq, was speaking the other time, and he was talking about discipline on the side of the legislature, the executive trying to ensure that the various MDA chief executive comply, I wanted to hijack the statement, but thank God Namdas has taken it up from here. That's beyond that, with due respect. I've experienced the two. I was a former Minister of National Planning, and I used to know how we treat the legislature. I could keep a senator in my office for 1 hour because, and I began to wonder why, what was he doing? Why was he coming? Until I now got to National Assembly as the head of an agency, and I saw how, with due respect, impoverished that institution is. Sincerely yours. As he said, Nigeria wouldn't want to hear this. But from the point of knowledge, as a student of politics and a student of parliamentary studies, and as a former minister who was part of the executive and now part of the parliament by virtue of my responsibility, I think we need to do more for Nigerian parliament. Parliamentary work is at the level of the committees. It's not the plenary. In Austria, the plenary meets once in a month. Committee, do the work, the major work. And for them to do the major work is about oversight. You are going to Lagos to oversight NPA, and they can only go with 3 million for 30 members. Forget about the oversight. There won't be any result. The tendency for them to compromise is already there because the system does not even provide for them. I'm not trying to defend the legislature. They could have their own shortcomings. Nobody's perfect. But the point remains that aspect that we use in condemning them, they're taking too much money. We need to look into it seriously. As they keep on saying, when people talk about the budget of the National Assembly, 150 billion, 200, nobody, even the academics, my colleagues in the university, most of them don't even know that when you talk of these 250 billion, out of the 21 trillion, they wouldn't know that my agency is part of it. They wouldn't know that NAPRO is part of it. They wouldn't know that the Public Complaint Commission, some people do not even know that Public Complaint Commission is under National Assembly. They wouldn't know that National Assembly Service Commission is part of it. They wouldn't know that all the ailes, NASS management, they are part of people that took from this 250 billion. The question now remains, what remains for them to do the oversight work? I think the 10th Assembly member should not be shy away from a responsibility. For instance, a senator is seated down, he's entitled to the one vehicle. A minister, by law, by everything, is entitled to 3 vehicles with police and everything. So one vehicle for him with about how many local government? The senator from Kano is about 13 local government himself. I think we need to, if we want to really get things done going forward on our 10th Assembly, we need to strengthen, and that's where this topic of today comes in. We need to strengthen the parliamentary institutions. And the first thing we need to do, having recruits tell people that should work in, we need to really, fund that organ very well. They need to be well funded. When they are well funded, you can call for question, you can call for accountability. And I want to appeal to the 10th Assembly. With due respect, I have Senator Sadiq here. You have to tell your story yourself. Nigeria should not tell your story for you. In the last 4 years, our institute has gone beyond training to advocacy, because we have seen the underdeveloped stature of National Assembly. We have seen a National Assembly that has the wherewithal in terms of trying to make law, trying to do oversight, but with less funding. We have seen a National Assembly that have done so much without the executive respecting them. We have seen a National Assembly where the head of MDA who is doling out in billions and trillions could just say to hell with you. Nigeria wouldn't ask questions from a minister that sits over 1 trillion in a year, but Nigeria will ask questions from National Assembly that sits over 150 billion. This one minister, just one minister. So I think this is an issue. It must be well funded. I'm talking of training. I just told you what we have in the next 6 months. As I'm talking to you, Ziri, the funding for those training are not available.
Wow.
So these are issues.
Okay. Well, we just have a few more minutes to go. So as we begin to wind down, we'll just take the closing comments now. And let's go to a guest who joins us via Zoom, Alexa Wilcox. And we are winding down now, just a few more minutes to go. So the 10th Assembly, building strong democratic institutions, what are your final thoughts?
Oh, thank you very much. Just like the Prof said, and Prof, my offer is still open in case you need it. It will not cost too much. The National Assembly to be funded, sincerely.
Anyone you said free, now not so much.
I said free. I said free. I mean free, so it won't cost him anything.
Oh, okay, fine. All right.
Yes. So now, the truth of the matter is this, and I said it in my opening statement. Nigerians should understand, even my professional colleagues, they will take 120 billion and share among 459 people and tell you, 469 people and tell you this is what each senator earns. And I'll be so appalled. Well, like the Prof said, they must tell their story. And they should not be shy. Now, the National Assembly is the least funded institution we have. It's the least funded institution. Look, how much does MPA control by the MD of MPA? How much does NIMASA controls by the MD of NIMASA, the DG of NIMASA? Even NSITF controls more resources than National Assembly as a whole. And you are talking, I want them to perform. So they should not be shy. Nigerians have blackmailed them to the point that they are shy of telling their stories. And I've not been a legislator before. I don't even have a capacity to run for an election. And so I'm not thinking, except I'll have a godfather that will send me there. I'm not even thinking of that. But sincerely, as a Nigerian, that institution needs to be funded, properly funded, and so that they can discharge that, so that they will not be dependent on MDAs to run their activities, and then by so doing get corrupted. Okay. And they must work for Nigerians to see that they are working.
All right. Thank you very much,
Alexa
Alexa Wilcox, Chartered Accountant and Public Affairs Analyst. We thank you very much for joining our conversation this evening. Thank you.
We hang in National Assembly since.
Right, Prof. Your closing comments,
yes,
quickly.
Closing comments. I'm very happy with the discussions that we've had here this evening. I only wish many Nigerians were up to watch this and to get a better understanding of really the position of the legislature in our system. And I do hope that those who say scrap the National Assembly is too expensive, Nigerian senators, House of Reps is too expensive, scrap them, it's a waste. They will get to know that actually National Assembly costs less than 2% of the national budget. So even if you were to scrap the National Assembly, you remove the 2%, what about the 98%? So this is an eye-opener for those who are of that opinion. And then lastly, the issue of training of new members-elect is okay, but they should also take seriously the privilege of appointing legislative aid and research assistants. Because no matter the training that you give a senator-elect, he is so busy, a senator is so busy that he is not able to conduct research or doesn't even have the expertise. So they should take that seriously and ensure that those legislative aid or research assistants are paid as and when due, so as to avoid the situation where they start carrying placards and complaining.
My closing thought is that I want the leadership of the National Assembly, both the House of Representatives and the Senate, to take advantage of the overwhelming support they've just received from their members. So if you have over 95% voting for you, I think that's great. So they should take advantage of that, and then also take advantage of the fact that we have legislators in the executive. And this is a time that they need to sit down. This particular, our speaker, former speaker, Ali, he's the chief of staff today. Now we have a speaker on ground. So I think when he was handing over, he said, take this document, please continue from where I stopped. And he believed that he would do good. And so, lastly, I can tell you, in the history of each house, the third Senate is better than the second. The fourth Senate is better than the third. The ninth is better than the eighth. And I can tell you the 10th will be better than the 9th. But that can only be done when you take advantage of the support you have early and you hit the ground running and meet with the executive just like the way the president is doing at the moment.
All right. Senator Sadiq Umar.
From what you said, it's evidence-based, and I can assure you 10 Senate will be better than 9 Senate. Another good news is that, like we said, those in the key position executive, they are legislators, they understand these issues, they are going to support the legislature, they are going to ensure we are well funded, they are going to support us, and we are going to perform better. But the only bad news I have is rubber stamp. Sorry, very, very sorry. Prof said it brilliantly. There's only one government. I don't have any different government. I'm an APC senator. Senator Bola Tinubu's government is my government as an APC. But we will continue to defend our government. If anybody at all is rubber stamp, it has to be civil society and the opposition, not the ruling party that is in majority anywhere in the world. It is our government. The policy is my policy. That's what I campaign for. I have to support it.
Well, I'm afraid we've run out of time now. So we'd just like to thank all our guests who have been part of this discussion. And especially let me say a very big thank you to Professor Abubakar Suleiman, the Director General of the National Institute for Legislative and Democratic Studies. Thank you for enlightening us about what the legislature actually faces. And I can assure you that not many Nigerians are aware of what you have just disclosed here. So we thank you very much for letting us know this and joining this conversation. And again, not surprising, having been a former Minister of National Planning and bringing that wealth of knowledge to your current dispensation in the legislation. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And for Professor Osumo, it's always a delight for you to be here. Honorable Namdas, again, the media, this used to be your constituency. So we thank you. And again, thank you to Senator Sadiq Umar. Thank you. And to you, thanks for being with us this far. We appreciate you. Next week, we'll be back with NTA Tuesday Live. I'm Cyril Stover. Continue to stay safe.